We got some books. It's a joke. These are empty. I would never abuse my books. I normally don't do like book hauls where I buy a whole bunch of books. I've done one before on the channel, but that's not like typically my thing. But I've read almost every book that I have on my shelves back here. Obviously excluding like this little portion of the shelf that's my wife's books. I haven't read those, but maybe someday. I don't know. So I figured what better way to start the new year than with some new books. So I went out and I got some books that have been on my kind of wish list for a while, and just some books that I've been really thinking a lot lately about reading and wanting to get into. So I have a few books here, nothing huge. It's not like these booktuber 100 book hauls, but we're also probably going to talk a little bit about some of my reading goals for 2026, I think. I want to make this video a little more chill. We got the fireplace going in the background, so let's just jump right into it with our first book. This first book is one of the books I'm most excited about, but I'm also the most worried about reading, and that is Stephen King's Billy Summers. I've only read one Stephen King book before, and I really didn't like it. I read Pet Sematary. I didn't like the writing style very much. I didn't really like the theme very much. I felt like the book was just kind of a slow mess, in my opinion. So I've decided this year I'm going to give Stephen King another chance. I figured it wasn't very fair to only give him one shot and never try it again, because maybe that book just wasn't my style. So I picked up Billy Summers. This is a book about a veteran of the Iraq War who is like an accomplished military sniper, but now he's kind of an assassin or a hitman, but he only kills people that he feels deserve it. So I guess if you come to him with like a contract or something and he's like, oh, that person's innocent in my mind, then he won't kill them. But he decides he's ready to get out of the game. And then one last job comes in. So he says, all right, I'm going to do this last job and then I'm out of the game because this pays a lot of money. And of course, the cliche kind of trope that always happens, you know, one last job means nothing's going to go right and it's all going to go crazy. So hopefully I'll like this. We'll see. Next up is Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruccio. I'm not sure how he pronounces his name. I've seen different things said. This is a sci-fi book, and I'm trying to get really into some more sci-fi this year. I read some sci-fi last year, but really 2024 was the year I read a ton of sci-fi. I read all the Dune books that year and a few other sci-fi. And 2025, I really didn't get into a lot of sci-fi, so I've been itching to really get back into some sci-fi books. So this book follows a guy named Hadrian Marlowe, and he is this future emperor, but he flees his kind of cruel father to go out and become a gladiator, which that alone pretty much sold me on this book. But if that's not enough for you, he then gets entangled in this brutal, like, all-out galactic war and finds out he's like a legendary figure that's prophesied, I guess, to destroy a sun, like not like a person's sun, like a planetary sun. I know this is like a legendary sci-fi book. A lot of people have high praise for it. So this is probably going to be one of my first reads of the year, I think. I'm excited to get into this one. The only thing I'm worried about, though, is this series has like so many books in it now. I'm really going to be playing catch up. And I'm kind of worried that if I love this book, I'm going to be like, now I have to read the series. And then I'm going to have to try to read like the other 6 books or something that's in this series. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next up, we got something I actually got for my wife, but maybe for a little bit of selfish reasons. I bought the Lord of the Rings box set, which includes The Hobbit in it. My wife has really been wanting to read Lord of the Rings, and I don't have as much interest in it. I'm not really a fantasy guy, but I decided, you know, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone this year. That's one of the reading goals we'll talk about in just a minute. These are little copies of the books. I'll pull one out right here for you. The Fellowship of the Ring, they're like really nicely made in these little, like, they're not real leather, obviously, but they're these little editions that kind of are like Bibles almost. I think this is the way I would really like to read this series, because a lot of the books that I see are like giant hardcovers, and I really just want something small. Like if I'm reading a series this big, I want something that I can just throw in my backpack, throw in my back pocket, and just pull it out and read it anywhere. I get kind of like anxious if I'm in public and I'm reading like a giant hardcover or something. I'm not the type of person to really do that. So I prefer something like kind of small and portable like this. Like I said before, I'm not a big fantasy guy. I would probably consider it my least favorite genre, but I haven't read a lot of it. And I think this might not be a fair comparison, but a book series I really love is Dune. And I've kind of heard that proclaimed as the Lord of the Rings of sci-fi. So how am I going to say I don't like fantasy if I haven't read The Lord of the Rings or even The Hobbit? So I figured I'd pick it up and try it this year. Who knows if I'll actually finish it or enjoy it even, but I'm gonna at least give it a try. Now we got a book I actually got for Christmas, and that is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. I'm so excited for this one. I talked about this on a video of huge books that I'm afraid to read. This one's pretty famous. I don't think I need to explain it too much. Ishmael, the hunt for the white whale and everything, you know. I've never read this though. I've never even read a passage of it for school or anything. I don't know how I've gone my whole life so far avoiding this book. So I decided this year was the year that I'm really going to get into it, even though I'm scared. I'm going to take the plunge and get into it. Let me just give a little rant real quick about this edition. This is the Everyman's Library edition, and it's my first time owning one of these. I'm so excited for it. I used to not be a big hardcover guy, but I've been getting into them a bit more recently. It's a beautiful edition. The font is great and easily readable. I read the introduction already. The thing that I love the most, I wish every single book in the world had this. And this might not sound like a big thing to some of you guys, but this is my favorite thing when book editions do this. We got a ribbon. I don't know what it is, but I love having a ribbon attached to the book that I'm reading. I really hate carrying bookmarks. I hate dog-earing my books. A ribbon is just perfect because it's not like a bookmark where it gets in the way. It's just this little piece of fabric that sits right perfectly in the crevice. It's out of your way, but if you need to quickly snap the book shut, you're fine. You don't have to grab your bookmark and put it back in. I don't know how to explain it. I just love ribbons and editions of books. This is going to sound like the rant of a crazy person. Why do the mowers for our apartment complex decide to mow as I'm doing my video? Now we got Inherent Vice by Thomas Pynchon. I picked this one up at our local half-price books. They were having a big like 25% off everything sale, so I got this really cheap. And I've been wanting to get into some of his books, but I don't have the time for something like Gravity's Rainbow right now. So this is kind of one of his shorter reads, from what I know. Legendary author known for things like Gravity's Rainbow, The Crying of Lot 49 and stuff. I've never read anything of his though. I did read Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace, which takes a lot of inspiration and is a little derivative of Gravity's Rainbow apparently. So I decided to just start with this, and I figure it'll kind of let me know if I like his style or not. My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is one of the books I'm most excited to read this year. It's a part of a trilogy, which, again, getting into a series always scares me because if I don't really like the first one, then I feel like I kind of need to continue almost. But I'm trying to get over that. But what made me want to read it is I read the author's other book, Mapping the Interior. If you haven't read it, I totally recommend it. It was one of my favorite books of last year. The author's style in this is like short, punchy, to the point, and I really love it. But will that style of a 90-page book hold up in like a 400-page book? Will I love it as much? I guess we'll have to see. Then we got The Stranger by Albert Camus, another Everyman's Library edition. I got the Moby Dick one, and then I was like, I have to have another one. And again, we got a ribbon in here. Another really famous novel, so I won't dive into it too much. One thing I'll say real quick, though, I might be dyslexic because all this time, for some reason, I've thought his name was Albert Campus. And I don't know why I thought that. I think I've been reading his name wrong for like 2 years or something. I might just be dumb, but I could also be, I might need to be checked for dyslexia, because I don't know how I went that long without realizing. Then we got Starship Troopers. I know there's a movie of this. I didn't even know there was a book. So when my wife found it while we were like picking through books at Barnes & Nobles, I was like, dang, I'm gonna have to read this now. This looks cool. There's like this interstellar war going on against arachnids, and we're following our main character, Johnny Rico, as he kind of navigates that and has to really fight with his infantrymen and everything. So excited to get into this one. I won't talk too much about it. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Another one I haven't heard too much about, but it sounds really interesting. It's a gothic story, and it's kind of a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, which I haven't read either, so maybe I need to read that before this, but I don't know if that's too important. This book is gothic, like I said, and it supposedly is very atmospheric, and I love a good atmospheric read. So probably going to get into this pretty soon too. There's some books that I really prefer to read when the weather is cold out, and I feel like a gothic atmospheric book is one of those things. So this will probably be one of my first reads of the year as well. Storm of Steel. This is a first-hand account of World War I by Ernst Junger. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. It's a memoir. It's supposed to kind of go over a lot of what happened in the war. I've heard it's sort of boring in some parts because it's just like, today we woke up and did this, and then we went to bed, and then we woke up and did this. But I've heard a lot of praise for it. I'm probably going to read this around November for another nonfiction November challenge. True Grit, classic Western novel. Haven't read a ton of Westerns. Excited for this one. Don't have much to say about it. And now we're at our last one, Stand on Zanzibar by John Brunner. This is kind of one of the OG sci-fi books, but I don't hear it talked about a whole lot. It's obviously out there, but I just don't hear a lot about it. It takes place in 2010, and these corporations have kind of overridden any democracy, and technology kind of acts as an intercessor between any human relationships, and the elites are keeping the population docile with like mind warping drugs and everything. Thing that made me really want to read this is on the back. It says, "The world system is out of control, and we are all its victims and its creators." I just thought that sounded really cool. It takes place in 2010. And of course, when the book was published in like the 1960s, that was far off in the future. I'm wondering if reading it is going to be kind of weird because I'm going to constantly have it in the back of the mind. This is the past for me, but I'm sure that won't affect it a lot. And that's all the books I got. So real quick, let me just explain my reading goals for 2026. I don't have a whole lot. I think I can kind of sum it up in 2 words. Number 1 being consistency. In 2025, I read more than I was planning to, but I think I ended up reading less than I could have read just because I wasn't consistent. I really had a lot of like 2-week, even 3-week periods where I just wasn't reading anything. I wouldn't read for 2 days, and then I would get down on myself because I hadn't read, and then I would just like end up going 2 weeks without reading. And I don't know why I was doing that so much. So that's one of my goals this year, is to just stay consistent, read every day. You know, unless something crazy is happening, I can obviously take breaks, but I really want to push myself for consistency. And number 2 is going to be variety. I'm a person who doesn't really expand their horizons a lot. I kind of stay in my box that I'm comfortable in most of the time. So I really want to get out of the bounds of genres that I love. You know, jump out of the sci-fi genre, jump out of kind of reading a lot more of these classics that have been boring me a little lately, because not because the books are bad, but just because I think I'm getting kind of sick of the genre. And if I don't expand my horizons, I might just burn out on reading in general, and I don't want to do that. So this year I really want to try to get into like a little bit of each genre and try out stuff that people recommend me. So if you have a genre that maybe you know I don't like fantasy or something, and you have a recommendation, maybe based on these or something else you've seen on the channel, feel free to recommend it. I always look into every recommendation I get, just because You never know what you'll find. I might find a gold mine. You know, someone might recommend something and I might end up being one of my favorite books. I think a lot of the time people's recommendations are really good. But those are my 2 goals. Again, consistency, variety. I'm going to really be pushing myself for that this year. And I don't want to make myself like burn out by trying to read like, you know, maybe a whole bunch of romance books. I don't need to read like 20 romance books this year just for the sake of variety or something. But I'm maybe going to get into romance this year around Valentine's Day to do a video on that or something, you know? I just want to be able to jump around a lot more and really try out stuff this year and kind of settle into who I am as a reader. I guess that sounds kind of dumb maybe, but that's kind of how I feel, I guess. What are you guys planning to do for this new year? What are your reading goals? What are you really hoping to get into? Are there any genres like I was talking about where you just really want to push yourself and try to get into something? Recommend me some books. Let's talk in the comments. I love talking books. I never get enough of it. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. See ya.